Welcome everyone to IMCC. We want to take a quick stretch and wave to your neighbors. On Zoom land, wave to your Brady Bunch boxes. So tonight's talk is going to be on the middle way. I should announce who I am. I'm Denise, one of your 6 Dharma leaders here at IMCC. A couple of weeks ago, Thea had given us a talk on how to sit and stay with our practice. A lovely talk. Knowing what kind of energy we are bringing to our practice, having sustained balance, and honoring the middle way. And tonight I would like to continue that conversation about the Buddha's teaching on the middle way. My interest in this was sparked by watching the Redfin commercial about Goldilocks and the 3 bears. I frequently refer to Goldilocks in my job as a physical therapist, and I'm teaching my patients how to try to find the optimal movement pattern without having too much effort or excess motion, and not too little, but just right. And the Redfin commercial, has anyone seen this commercial? Redfin? I gotta YouTube it. Pretty funny. Okay, gotta YouTube it. In this commercial, Goldilocks and the 3 bears are living together. And Goldilocks is doing her thing, testing out the beds and the food and the household activities to find what is just right for her. The 3 bears note their love for her, but let it be known that they're not particularly pleased with her presence. She is testing their patience. Is just right optimal? Taking another look, perhaps I got the moral of the story wrong all these years. She abuses boundaries, okay? She's really particular, okay? She's a bit self-centered about how things are affecting her, and she lacks some awareness of how her choices might be affecting someone else. She's a bit self-indulgent, and she's eating Papa Bear's leftovers, and she is sleeping in Mama Bear's bed. She's a perfectionist to the extreme. She lacks awareness of how her need to have things just right is annoying the bears. They see Goldilocks as not accepting the present moment as it is. She hasn't truly found the middle way because she grasps for things to be just right. She even admits to herself about midway through the commercial that she is perhaps not the easiest person to please. Mama Bear notes it is time for her to move out. Redfin will find the house that is just right for her. And the bears are relieved. They can go back to living their usual lives. So the moral of the story is not that Goldilocks has found the middle way, as I thought, but due to greed, aversion, and delusion, she seeks extreme perfectionism and indulgence. She does not abide in equanimity, which would mean not being tied down to, limited by, or burdened by preferences, but to abide in a freedom of being with the current circumstances without needing these circumstances to be different. The Buddha taught the wisdom of the middle way, to not be pulled into extremes, even the extreme of perfectionism. He outlined 2 particular dead ends, one being infatuation or indulgence, and on the other side, self-mortification. Indulging in the senses versus asceticism. These rarely contribute to transformation, let alone enlightenment. Self-indulgence and self-denial are the extremes. The Buddha taught that these two extremes ought not be practiced. From the sutta, Setting the Wheel in Motion, in the Samyutta Nikaya, says, the Blessed One addressed the group of 5 monks. These are the two extremes that are not to be indulged in by one who has gone forth. Which two? That which is devoted to sensual pleasure, with reference to sensual objects, base, vulgar, common, ignoble, unprofitable. And that which is devoted to self-affliction, painful, ignoble, and unprofitable. Avoiding both of these extremes, the middle way is realized by the Tathagata. That is the name that the Buddha used to reference himself. Producing a vision, producing knowledge, leading to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding. And what is the middle way? The Noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration or stillness. In other words, just right view, just right intention, just right action, etc. The Buddha taught a middle path that doesn't lead to dead ends or extremes, or what is termed anta, A-N-T-A, in the Pali language. It's translated as an end or a boundary or extremes. Dharma leader Stephen Batchelor, in his Dharma talk, The Middle Way, said, a path leads you to somewhere, a dead end does not. If we are paying attention, we realize that no 2 moments are ever the same. Life is not black and white, good or bad, or right or wrong, but many shades of gray that need to be navigated wisely and ideally by the Eightfold Path. Mindfulness, effort, and intention, etc. Most often, there is no one particular way to solve problems and dilemmas, but a moving line of right action, because our circumstances are always changing. Stephen Batchelor says in his talk, the middle way is a moving line, a juggling act. We must be diligent, aware, and attentive. On our toes, eyes open, aware and accept our reality. To see that we are not falling off one way or the other into extremes or dead ends. We need to wisely discern and negotiate our circumstances to predict our best course of action for positive outcome. With wise intention and action, taking responsibility for how our choices impact us and others, to set forth the conditions for harmony and to avoid harm and suffering. I have some examples of extremes, and you might be sitting there right now having your examples of extremes. So a few that came to my mind were binging, overspending, excessive fasting, over-exercising, oversleeping, zealous religiosity, violence to get one's way, stonewalling, and I'm sure you can come up with many more on this list. Any kind of behavior that comes out of neurotic, egotistical, or closed-minded way, self-righteousness included, becomes a dead end. Now, I believe most of us here, I know myself, have been raised in a Western culture. And I see passion as something that can lead to extremes of behavior. So I didn't quite understand how it fit into the Buddhist practice, this idea of passion. I believe that passion is something that we relish here in the West. Our society sees passion as a motivator, get us moving, for accomplishment, innovation, and success, and particularly to acquire status and wealth and notoriety. Passion in the Buddhist teachings can be desirable if it is used to develop a good spiritual practice, leading to more wholesome choices and beneficial action. We can have passion for our meditation practice, not zealous passion, but careful passion and attentive. It doesn't mean to be lazy or checked out, but it means not to grasp for what you're wanting. The second noble truth tells us that clinging is the root of all suffering. It is our perception of lack that leads us to clinging and grasping. The fear of missing out. Can we stop and ask ourselves, what is it we are lacking? Am I truly lacking this? Oh, that's this. Or are we getting another one of our hungry ghosts? I mentioned that 2 talks ago, and I said, well, I heard it from Tara Brock, and thank goodness 2 of our Dharma leaders and a little bit of research helped me to understand what the hungry ghost truly is in the Buddhist practice. It's part of the Buddhist cosmology. There's something called the hungry ghost realm, one of the 6 realms of existence, characterized by an insatiable craving. They have very little mouths and big bellies. Therefore, they are unable to satisfy their desires. It's that one chip, can't eat just one mentality. According to AI, they are reborn into this realm due to past actions fueled by greed, jealousy, and selfishness, the extremes of craving. To minimize suffering, what we need is to establish our basic needs: food, water, shelter, clothing, connection. Seeking contentment that our basic needs are met. In an article called The Background to Metta by Ayachar Bukhakarita, I believe it's pronounced, it says, live a simple life as an expression of metta. Involves a reorientation of one's outlook and conduct, even in a competitive, pleasure-seeking, and possession-minded world. A man of simple living is gentle, yet efficient and effective, and he has restraint over his senses. Faculties being moderate, frugal, and controlled. Mental culture through meditation. For such a person becomes natural and effortless, hence the attribute of tranquil in his senses. The Buddha spoke of Aryagata, meaning noble lineage or noble family. He defines 4 characteristics of someone who is noble, and that's to have the quality of one's character and spiritual development. 1 is to be content with their lodging. 2, to be content with their food. To be content with their housing. And 4, they take delight in bhavana, the cultivation of the Eightfold Path, meditation being part of this practice. To be content with a life of simplicity. They say as you get older, you get wiser, but I'm still trying to figure this life out. I've noticed I've slowed down over the years in many ways. I've seen others do it, but I didn't think it was going to happen like this. And I'm not so sure I became that much wiser. But after years of experimentation in this life, I've come to see that self-indulgence in the extremes actually leads to suffering. Eating too much, staying up too late, buying things I don't need, all lead to suffering. I've also realized that self-denial, asceticism, also form suffering. And it does not give me the energy or contentment. So I like to think that I have become wiser, that I've dropped some of these extremes because I realize they don't work, at least not for me. I find as much as I want to successfully ride life's waves, as in the coming and going of our experiences, I don't want my waves too big. and I don't want them to dip down too deep. I just want to have a nice smooth ride up and down, enjoying the feeling of being a little bit higher to see a little higher thought, a little wider expanse, and then enjoy the release of the tension as it comes down. When a big wave comes by, it is scary. You can get hurt. But if I've been using my energy wisely, I will have the reserves necessary to deal with it. And if there are no waves, I might get bored. We won't have any imagination or creativity sparked. The Buddha taught that in this life we will have experiences that pull us toward the extremes. For example, the 8 worldly winds. The Buddha said praise and blame, fame and disrepute, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, all come and go like the wind. To be happy, rest like a giant tree in the midst of them all. These are impermanent conditions that are bound up with suffering. In the Metta Sutta, it says, "And one who knows the path of peace, let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature." Metta is the first of the 4 Brahma-Viharas of the divine abodes, and they can also be used to help us access the middle way. There are enemies of the divine abodes, and these can be your extremes. In metta loving kindness or friendliness, the far enemy is ill will or aversion, and it is to be avoided. In compassion, we sit with another one who is in the midst of suffering, and the far enemy is cruelty, to be avoided. In sympathetic joy, which is to sense the gladness and good fortune of another, the far enemy is envy, jealousy, and resentment, and they are to be avoided. In equanimity, which is the radical acceptance of the moment as it is without needing it to be different, in other words, a non-reactive mind due to wisdom, the far enemy is greed and resentment, and is to be avoided. Some of you may be familiar with the spiritual philosopher Michael Singer and his book, The Untethered Soul. He says, a pendulum at rest is balanced, has no energy pushing it in either direction. But if you swing the pendulum, you'll get an equal and opposite reaction. Thea talked in her talk about titration. If we stop swinging into the extremes, we won't waste our energy, and we'll be able to maintain that sustained balance that she spoke of. Can we detect the forces that want to pull us out of balance? Thinking back to a moving line, everything has its own balance point. We don't have a world that's static and fixed, but a dynamic equilibrium. Singer wrote, "The way is the middle because that's the place where the energies are balanced." How do we stop the pendulum from swinging to the outer edges? Amazingly enough, you do this by leaving it alone. It won't keep swinging into the extremes unless you feed it with energy. Don't participate in the extremes. The pendulum will naturally come towards center. So we're going to come to one of my favorite examples is my driving. If someone cuts you off on the highway, feel your energy, or I feel my energy pull off center. I can either get PO'd for an hour and engage in road rage, or I can choose to let go. And if I do, it can bring me back to center. I want to follow this advice that I'm giving myself as well as to you. okay? But I had an idea that can try to make this go a little easier. You can actually exclaim to the other driver, versus my usual exclamation, "I let you go away." And you know what? They do. They do go away. That's why they went ahead of me and cut me off. Okay? So who's in control now? Seriously, it might just give us a little chuckle, and if nothing else, that can help us with our emotional regulation and help us to come back to center. I have a couple of examples that I read or heard on course correcting from the extremes that I'd like to share. One of them is from Stephen Batchelor, and he gave the example of a baby learning to walk. The baby learns to walk by falling. It sways too far to one side or to the other, and there they go, boom. But they get back up and they course correct and they learn. Michael Singer gives the example of a blind person walking down a city street, tapping the cane from side to side, not to find out where to walk, but where they shouldn't walk. So how can we work with this? Well, maybe in our meditation, or even if we call ourselves to some mindfulness during our day off the cushion, we could do a little body scan. Are we holding ourselves tense, holding on too tight, and agitated or filled with anxiety? Or are we devoid of energy, just listless, maybe been hanging out on the couch for 2 days? We can bring ourselves back to center by our meditation practice and just even awareness of where are we right now. Bring ourselves to our breath, perhaps even placing a hand over your heart center and feeling your feet on the ground. Come back to the middle, come back to center. And we can check the mindfulness of our mind. Mindfulness with right effort, which is cultivating the wholesome mind state and maintaining it, replaces reactivity with reflection, contemplation, and investigation. And in this way, mindfulness can be helpful to understand what this present moment experience gives us and how it can lead us to transformation. Stephen Batchelor says, we need to learn to accept our imperfections, know our own blindness and weakness, and that we will fall off the path and recognize falling off the path, and that falling off the path is a form of learning. To avoid getting caught in extremes, let's effort towards acceptance, find freedom from preference, and renounce the extremes for spiritual freedom.